Go.
Streaming from South Africa to the world. This is the Stonks Go Moon Podcast. What just happened? We break it down so you don't have to.
Welcome everyone to the Stonks Go Moon Podcast. For years, quantum computing was something people filed under the future. Interesting but distant. Now suddenly it's not. Quantum has gone from sci-fi to oh shit, this might actually break things sooner than we thought. Google just published research suggesting that breaking modern encryption might happen much earlier than expected, possibly within the next decade. So the question isn't if quantum matters anymore, it's what breaks first when it does. My guest today, friend of the show, returning, Ian Smith from Quantum EVM. Welcome to the pod.
Thank you very much for having me again, Rocco.
No, it's a pleasure. So Google did something quite recently. They published a paper on quantum and Q-Day. When people think of Google, they mainly think of, oh, it's a search engine provider, or there's this thing where if I want to go and find something out, I go to the site and I push something in. It's funny that not a lot of people realize still today that Google is this massive tech company with their own supercomputers and their own operating system, and they've done a job to brand themselves sort of as one thing and then hide all the things that they're doing in the background. You know what I mean? It's like they don't openly publish. And now this paper, I think, when people scratch their heads a bit, it's like, what is this all about? And why is Google coming out and saying these things that we're supposed to be hearing from the crypto community? Does that make sense?
So Ethereum Foundation assisted in writing that paper, and I have issues with some of the things that were said because they were claiming that something that's post-quantum that isn't post-quantum is over and over. And then they had basically some influence from the industry to write this paper.
Okay.
Google has a lot of customers that are actually blockchains because they're doing data center hosting. And they're basically trying to put their data center blockchain hosting customers on notice. You have to upgrade.
Okay.
And this has been known in the industry for a long time. I first heard about Shor's algorithm breaking crypto in 2002. Satoshi wrote about it kind of incorrectly in 2010, and he missed the main issue. And then by 2013, Bitcoin's like, okay, this is so much of an issue, we have to deprecate, which means turn off the old pay to public key system. And they turned it off in 2013. Then they re-added the same problem back again, and they added Taproot. So
yes,
they reintroduced the vulnerability. The main thing that people kind of misunderstood for a long time about Google is that they're actually an AI company, and they've been working on cutting-edge science ever since their foundation. I went to a presentation by Larry Page back in, I think it was 2001, and he's like, we're an AI company, and we just happen to have a search engine.
Jeez.
And quantum computing offers a huge, enormous number of advantages to AI because you can do things that we don't necessarily have. Like, you have to, when you look at a silicon computer, it's only doing addition and comparison. That's it. Everything it does is based off of those two operations, done very complexly, but just that. And when you look at quantum systems, they can find patterns that we just didn't notice. They can do chemistry really fast. There's more money and more energy spent on simulating chemical processes than there is spent on mining Bitcoin.
Jeez.
And quantum computers do that much, much, much better than anything else. And so there's a huge push in just doing chemical modeling. And the chemical modeling is a big advancement. When QEra did their 3,000 qubit neutral atom computer last May, They didn't factor a number as proof. What they did was they did chemical modeling for, I think it was strontium 90. It was an isotope of an element. Like, here's an enormous amount of data that no one had before. And that was their proof. And it was proof of useful work.
Jeez. So I guess my next question would be that if you had to break down what exactly is it that Google said, because we spoke a bit off air about the FUD that the crypto community is dismissing this offhand, but what exactly is it that Google came out and said?
So there was a couple observations that they make. The first one is that, this is not controversial at all, and no one's really denying this, and that's that quantum computers can solve discrete logs. And that breaks basically all known crypto systems that were in use before this post-quantum cryptography. And no one's really trying to counter that. That's not the FUD. What the Bitcoin community is claiming as FUD in an attempt to crash the price of Bitcoin is this idea that that's coming soon. And what they did is a mathematical method that they did not reveal that indicated that this will be possible by 2019 or 2029 using a smaller quantum computer.
Jeez.
And 2 days later, the Chinese are like, here's our method for doing it about the same time and the same speed. And there was multiple papers that came out of China, all research, all using Shor's algorithm. And they're like, we have the same results.
It's funny how China always comes out after the West, because I remember when OpenAI and Claude and whatever and were like the first, and then DeepSeek came, right? It's rarely the other side, or it's rarely flipped.
They copy and then innovate.
Yes.
Not innovate.
Yes.
They're extremely competitive. Like Google had just one quantum. This is one of the other things they said. They only had the superconducting chipset, which they announced Willow.
Yes.
Almost a year and a half ago, and then a month later, China announces the same architecture, more qubits, and
just
faster, and a similar operation. And they just didn't reveal their capabilities until after the West was like, look how great we are. No one can touch this. Like, we've been better than that. So a lot of the times you're seeing news from China saying, yeah, we did that a while ago. It's just for fundamental technology, they copy and then innovate. But then they're really good at doing this iterative process where things get better and better over time. I wouldn't necessarily trust a lot of these things because one of their innovations is they're always trying to make it cheaper as well.
Yes.
When they copied the fighter jets from Russia and America and the tank from America, they took the plans, implemented them with shortcuts, and then made them cheaper and tried to improve upon them since then. And they said that their fighter jets were far, or just as capable, and their radar systems were even better than America. And they get into this competition for everything, and they're competing more in the quantum arena than they are for trying to sell military equipment. They list quantum and robotics as a fundamental part of their economy.
Wow.
It's not like, oh yeah, we have a stock exchange and there happens to be like one or two stocks that are quantum on there. They're putting quantum ahead of their brain neural connect interfaces that they're doing, which they've got, and they're doing it ahead of a lot of them.
So we can
technology.
So basically we can assume that the Chinese are in front, or are they on level par with what the West is doing in terms of quantum?
For years, they were funding several times what the entire West was funding into quantum research.
Wow.
So Google has, one, and now they bought a company to get a second quantum computer architecture. China made one of everything. I'm not sure how many they have, but they've got neutral atom, and they've got trapped ion, and they've got superconducting, and they've got photonic. And they're just kind of like going, oh yeah, we've got that. Here's the project, and here's the stats on it. And I'm worried sometimes that they fake some of these things because they fake a lot of statistics. But the machine they put on the cloud, and people tested it and said it was real.
Yeah, because that's a problem between if you want to call someone's bluff, but on the other hand, what if it's true? That we can just assuming something is untrue is just as dangerous at the end of the day. And I'm wondering just if a lot of this war that's currently going on is a proxy war actually between America and China over these things that we just don't know about.
So Venezuela, Cuba, and Iran were the three major allies outside of Russia. And so there's been this West versus Russia proxy war going on for years now.
Yes.
And so instead of having a World War III where the United States was surrounded, getting flanked by Venezuela Navy and Cuba, Army and China's Navy, they're taking them out one at a time. Quantum is very dangerous because it allows you to make your aircraft immune to enemy friend or foe identification systems.
Oh no. So friendly fire and stuff like that.
Well, so let's say that, the United States solved this and didn't reveal it. And then they put a whole bunch of heat-seeking, tagged, you see these red or green marker. All of the American airplanes will show up as green targets to the Chinese system, or the reverse.
Yes.
All of the Chinese airplanes show up. And it's not per ship. It's actually going to be a global problem. It's going to be all of them. So if you have one quantum computer, all of your airplane are immune to enemy friend or foe identification systems because it uses the same discrete, it's a discrete log problem in a different way.
I didn't even think of this.
So they're treating this as
This is madness. This is absolutely crazy. It's madness.
So is there a proxy war going on between China and the United States? I'd say there's competition.
Okay.
And I think that the negotiating table got kind of wiped clean when Venezuela, Iran, and now Cuba have been essentially wiped clean. So China is probably more willing to negotiate, and it could be that some of the purges that are going on inside of China are, you've been lying for years about our hardware performance, now it's time for you to get executed.
Jeez.
Possibility, we don't know. They're not admitting, But in terms of, how this affects blockchain is,
yes.
I really prefer this idea of having a seatbelt before impact. And, it's the same thing, three different ways. You can have a seatbelt, you can have a parachute, and you can have post-quantum cryptography. But you have to use all three before impact. You cannot deploy the parachute as a blanket and think it's going to save you after the fact.
Okay.
You can't put your seatbelt around you after on the corpse and say, look, he was wearing a seatbelt. Why didn't it work? No.
But that's seemingly what and I'm using a blanket statement. It's not everyone, but the crypto community, that's because they fiercely want to protect this narrative of, and I'm going to say Bitcoin, because you've got Bitcoiners and then you've got the rest of crypto. So, but they fiercely, it seems like the Bitcoiners are the biggest proponents. They're shouting the loudest about this being overblown or over exaggerated, that because they want to protect this narrative. I mean, if you look where Bitcoin started and where it's now and how far it's come, they don't want to lose that now, right? I understand that in the one. But on the other end of the spectrum, if you're just going to put your head in the sand and act like this isn't happening, then all that's going to happen is these billionaire crypto exchange owners are at the end of the day going to sell off on their yachts, and you're going to be left with nothing.
They're going to just declare bankruptcy and keep all of your money. Yeah. It was kind of funny because CZ said, in order to protect the Bitcoin price, we need to burn Satoshi's coins. But there's more Bitcoin held by CZ in public keys for the Binance exchange than Satoshi. Binance has a higher exposure than Satoshi does. And they can just, follow the recommended implementation guide that has been around for over a decade and do something that's safe. But they're talking, I mean, he's mentioning burning Satoshi's coins instead of, and
Yes,
I'm like, well, how about we burn Binance's coins at the same time?
There's two
Because they
schools
chose to make it.
Yes, but there's two schools of thought now, right? So the one says no, they need to burn it. Sorry, there's three actually. They need to burn it, or they need to freeze it, or the other one is that what people are looking out for is if Satoshi is alive, it will move beforehand, and that's also equally as bad. Is that correct?
Well, I would do a slight parallel to that last one,
cool.
and that's that a quantum attacker could keep the machine secret instead of telling the Bitcoiners on monthly progress reports how close they are to breaking Bitcoin. And they would just move Satoshi's coins to their address or post-quantum cryptography or something, right? And since, I profile all of the companies. The number one record holder right now is a Caltech company that released just a week or so ago, 6,100 qubits.
Okay.
Prior to that, it was QEra at 3,000 qubits. How big is SciQuantum, which I consider the leader in the industry? How big is their quantum computer? They've never said.
Jeez.
They've got 4 of them, and they haven't told us how big they are. But they've been mass producing this equipment since I think they announced it in April of 2024 when the production was already well underway.
Mm-hmm. And am I right in saying it's not only about speed, but it's error correction?
So when you look at the specific architecture,
yes,
the error correction is going to vary a lot. Okay. Now, when you look at superconductors, they're brittle against heat and cell phones and magnets and electromagnetic fields from radio stations. They're vulnerable to pretty much everything. When you look at photonic quantum computers, they are immune to pretty much almost everything. Mm-hmm. The medium that they're traveling in could have a bend, and that might slightly skew things. But SciQuantum announced a 99.1% system. I think it was back in 2023, 2024. Mm-hmm. So if there's been any improvement since then that's good enough. Mm. Now, when you don't have good error correction on the hardware, you can implement error correction codes in the software. There's over 1,000 different codes, and they all do different things, and it's based on the geometry of the system, and there's different yields and so forth. Quantinium released a paper, I think it was a month and a half ago, where they were saying that they had 48 logical qubits from 98 physical qubits. They also said they had 94 logical, but I just didn't like their hand waving and shuffling that they did on the data. But it was a number that's commonly accepted is 48 logical from 98 physical. and those logical qubits have the error correction built into the hardware. So it's really advantageous to use the logical qubits. There's other techniques where you can just have spare qubits, and the spare qubits will jump in case there's an error. And this is a more common technique than making logical qubits because the yield is very high, and they only get used in case of an error. So there's a lot of ways of preparing that
and
yield,
this
right?
sounds extremely technical and extremely mathematical. Have you kept tabs with the mathematicians and the astrophysicists and stuff that's been disappearing in America? 3 or 4 of them.
I have not kept up with that, but
Because it's very Cold War-esque. These people suddenly, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm just someone that looks at stuff and tries to put one and one together and see if there's a trend. But when you've got mathematicians disappearing and you're talking to me about these complex mathematical problems and we're all in a race, then it's sort of like, yeah, I could see them somewhere working in a black site or being forced to work there on this problem. Can see that.
So I was in AI in 2002, 2003, and every so often one of the AI people would be like, I have to retire. Some of them were getting offered enormous sums of money to no longer be programmers.
What?
That was 24 years ago. So there was definitely an intentional suppression of technology in order.
Jeez.
But eventually, the published systems superseded. The same thing happened in cryptography years later. They classified all of the math, the algebra behind the number field C for breaking RSA. The number one consumer of the PlayStation 3 is the NSA. They bought more of them than everyone else combined. And that formula determines the efficiency of using those machines. You have to do, it's called the number field sieve. And if your algebra is good, it costs a lot less hardware to break RSA. So they classified it, and they told mathematicians, you cannot present your paper at this conference. And they were serious.
Yeah, no,
so
I can imagine.
That's not conspiracy theory. This is a
documented. Yes. But I mean, in the age that we're living in, a conspiracy theory is only 6 months away from being reality. I mean, conspiracy theorists are batting 1,000. It's like, so back to Google, which is also interesting that I saw yesterday or 2 days ago. Google blocked the Bitcoin.com's YouTube channel, which is very interesting. I don't know why they try to appeal it, but it's obviously AI censorship systems that they just got an auto denial. But back to Google. So Google says 2029. So
there's a funny thing there.
Yes.
Bitcoin.com doesn't run Bitcoin. They run Bitcoin Cash. BCH is quantum. They have added the necessary seatbelt to make Bitcoin Cash quantum safe. So I saw the block and I was like, that's odd. That's a little
odd. One of those things that you just go, okay. Okay. So 2029, right? What else? Did they say anything else that's of notable value?
Well, I mean, they were using ZK proofs and things like that, but it's really like ways of establishing credibility without revealing information.
Yes.
One of the things that is of note among the Bitcoin community is that they're saying that there's no way that you can ever do computations with entangled qubits, and that's absolutely obscene because they've been doing this for years.
Sorry, so what is an entangled qubit?
So they were described by Einstein, and he called them spooky action at a distance. It's like when you
Okay, I've
change
heard of that.
this one thing, it's going to change this other thing too. And we've observed photonic qubits for a very long time, and they're very, very stable. When you look at light from distant stars, if there was one chemical reaction that caused two photons, those two photons are entangled. And we can measure the photons independently, and we can check the entanglement, and that tells us things about this distant star and the chemistry of the distant star, and that entanglement has lasted for millions or billions of years. So this idea that you'll never have a stable qubit is preposterous. Those systems are incredibly stable, and the math that's involved is the same math that makes the stars operate.
Jeez.
So if we didn't have this math, then there wouldn't be stars. So it's really weird to deny this idea of quantum computers being able to be possible and do things.
Okay.
I mean, the trick is you have to load your question in, you have to let it compute, and then you have to read your answer out. And again, this is well-established science. This isn't contentious, but suddenly Bitcoiners just don't believe it.
So they say, so they, again, the Bitcoin community reckons that in a post-quantum world, Bitcoin or DeFi, not Bitcoin, DeFi, which is decentralized finance, will be more secure than traditional finance. But they don't give a reason. It's sort of a statement and saying, here.
There's, I would give a corollary to that real quick.
Okay.
So first off, when you look at Bitcoin, there's 35% of the public keys are known. And that means that 35% of the Bitcoin, 7 million Bitcoin, are quantum vulnerable. When you look at Ethereum, that number is 65%. Deloitte did a report, and they said 65% of Ethereum has a known public key.
Okay.
But if you do a transaction, then you're part of the DeFi 100% are known public keys. And when you look at Solana, it's just flat 100% because they use the public key as the address. So when you're looking at these systems, it is possible to add trust metrics that are mathematically provable using these zero knowledge proofs. And Bitcoin used one Google used one in their demonstration without revealing the private details. And this isn't a very useful and innovative form of cryptography. I say that Bitcoin and cryptocurrency have been absolutely brilliant for cryptography and absolutely awful for physics because they're just saying it doesn't exist. Its potential. So when you look at so I'll talk about distributed ledgers that include DeFi. There's an EVM, an Ethereum virtual machine. So we're talking like the Ethereum technology.
Yes.
There was a clone of Ethereum used by China to issue their currency. When the yuan gets minted, they're using the E1 architecture. And the advantage here is that you now have something that's tradable between machines that isn't like having one-on-one sessions. So there's like 19 peers, and they're all issuing the digital version of their currency into the blockchain. And this is very good. Another use case that's extremely useful is, let's say you have a supply chain and you don't trust the people and you don't want to give them a VPN connection to your network. Instead of trusting them, you can just let them declare information into the blockchain, and now it's readable. But number one, they can't edit it, and number two, you're not giving them a direct connection to your network. So the blockchain is a trust layer and an abstraction layer. It's a way to trust someone without trusting them individually. You're not trusting their network, you're just checking their answer. And then you can add mathematical proofs that verify their answer and possibly keep it secret. There's a a couple different varieties of zero knowledge proofs. Was really funny and a little tongue in cheek is that Google announced their mathematical proof in a way that was quantum vulnerable. They use something called snarks, and snarks can be broken by quantum computers. And they're like, quantum computers will break cryptography, and here's our proof. And it can be broken by cryptography or by quantum computers.
Yeah, sort of an inside joke.
There's Starks that are much more expensive, and you can use Stark safely because it just uses hashes. What we're trying to implement for quantum EVM is something called fully homomorphic encryption.
Yes.
And this is a method of having privacy that stays preserved, and it's very well acknowledged as quantum resistant. So Zcash and Monero are scrambling. They're like, we're kind of quantum safe. They're not.
No.
And what they're usually talking about when they say that they should have like 3 asterisks and like only the wallets, not the proof, and you lose all privacy. But they're not admitting those things.
No, they won't.
Would be still safe.
Can you imagine what would happen if they do?
I'm more willing to admit my mistakes than most people in crypto.
Ian, thank you so much for joining me today. What I want to do with this series is build up, get you back on every couple of months as we move into this Q Day to talk about it. Is that something you'd be up for?
Definitely. Oh, it's going to get very crazy.
The countdown to Q Day has begun. Ian, if the listeners want to go and connect with you and Quantum EVM, where can they find out about the stuff that you are busy with?
QuantumEVM.com, and there's a link to my X account from there. I have a LinkedIn, but I just don't really use it. My X account is IanSmith_HSA. If you've seen this, you know what I look like. I'm the 4th Ian Smith on the list if you just want to type that.
We'll leave all the links in the comments, and we don't like Microsoft for reasons that we will get into on the next pod, I think.
It's been over 30 years since I worked for them, and I still hate them.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining me, and to our listeners. Peace, love, and prosperity. We'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.
Baby, can you take more? Don't slow down, feel it, turn it, right now. You play tough, but I can see it. Every move you hesitate, talking like you on the rhythm, but you always have a beat late. Every time you try to test me, I just take it up a gear. If you really want the pressure, then you better stay right here. Don't stop now, don't fake it. If you're in this, then take it. For baby, can you take more? Let's go round for round. It's time to settle the score. Round and round, back again. Feel the pressure creeping in.